I'm Emma. And this is the story of how I found out my husband was cheating on our honeymoon. Yet, while we were supposed to be sipping wine under the Eiffel Tower, I was kicking him out of our hotel room in Paris. What followed? A 1-month girls' trip across Europe and the most satisfying divorce settlement you can imagine. Girls, never, ever pause your joy for a man who doesn't deserve your loyalty. Our flight landed in Paris just after noon. I remember the sky. It was that perfect hazy blue that makes every photo look like a postcard. Jake held my hand as we walked off the plane, smiling like a man who had everything. And honestly, I thought he did. We had just come off the wedding of our dreams. A lakeside ceremony, string lights, vows that made people cry. My heart was still full. My cheeks still sore from smiling. Everything felt magical. We checked into a charming hotel tucked away in Le Marais. Stone facade, wrought iron balconies, fresh peonies on the bedside table. I tossed my suitcase on the bed and kicked off my shoes, ready to melt into Paris with the man I'd just married. Jake went into the bathroom to take a shower. I grabbed a glass of complimentary rose and started flipping through the room service menu. That's when his phone buzzed. Once, quiet. A short little vibration on the nightstand. Normally I wouldn't have cared. But something, I don't know what. Call it gut instinct. Call it bridal paranoia. Either way, I glanced at the screen. A preview of the message glowed under his lock screen. Still thinking about last night. Can't believe you left me like that. My heart actually stopped. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking. I didn't want to know. But I needed to know. I unlocked it. Jake wasn't the type to use a password. What I found was a thread of messages, days and weeks of conversations. Photos. Jokes. Flirty innuendos. Naked truths. Things no husband should be saying to anyone other than his wife. Especially not on his honeymoon. I didn't cry. Not right away. Instead, I walked over to his suitcase, unzipped it and started tossing his clothes back in. Socks. Shirts. The same boxers he wore the day he proposed. He came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, hair dripping wet. "Babe, what are you doing?" he asked, half laughing. I didn't even look at him. "You can finish your little affair back in the States. You're not ruining my honeymoon." The blood drained from his face. "Emma, it's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that you're a lying asshole who's lucky I didn't throw your phone out the window along with your dignity." I shoved the suitcase into the hallway and slammed the door shut. I stared at it for a few seconds, chest heaving, heart racing, and then I locked it. Inside it was silent. And then I exhaled. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the gold-accented wallpaper like it might peel back and reveal answers. My chest was tight, but not from heartbreak. From disbelief. From anger. From pure, unfiltered rage wrapped in confusion. We were married for 8 days. 8. And now I was alone in a luxury suite in Paris with a bottle of warm rose and no plans for what came next. But then something in me snapped, in the best way. I didn't fly across the world to cry over a man with the emotional range of a teaspoon. I was in Paris. My dress still smelled like wedding flowers. And somewhere in this city there were cafes, music, wine, and a version of me that wasn't about to waste a second more on Jake. So I picked up my phone. First, I called Olivia. She answered on the first ring. "What's up, Madam Newlywed?" she said with a teasing laugh. "Correction," I said, pouring myself another glass. "Madam almost divorced." There was a pause. "What?" I found messages. On his phone. While he was in the shower. "He's gone. Gone like I kicked him out of our hotel room. In a towel." She exhaled. "Jesus, eminencia. I need you here," I said. "Actually, I need all of you." There was no hesitation. Not from Olivia, not from Harper, not from Zoe. By the next evening, all 3 of them were on flights. Best friends don't ask questions when the words honeymoon and cheating are in the same sentence. I spent the next 24 hours cleaning up the mess Jake left behind, canceling his portion of reservations, deleting every photo with his smug little grin, calling my lawyer back home. And then, they arrived. 3 women with messy buns, oversized sunglasses and open suitcases full of chaos and comfort. When Olivia walked into the room, she dropped her bag and hugged me so hard I thought my ribs cracked. "I didn't bring tissues," she whispered. "I brought tequila." Zoe popped a bottle of champagne from duty-free. "To fresh starts," she said, pouring 4 glasses. Harper raised hers with a wicked smile. and to turning a cheating bastard's dream honeymoon into the trip of a lifetime. We clinked glasses. That night we laughed harder than I had in months. Ate room service in silk robes. Played breakup playlists way too loud. And as I lay in bed later, tipsy and exhausted, I realized something. This wasn't a tragedy. It was a plot twist. And I was just getting started. Paris looked different the next morning. Brighter, louder, alive. Maybe it was the 3 croissants I devoured at breakfast. Maybe it was the fact that I'd finally slept a full night without hearing Jake snore beside me. Or maybe it was because, for the first time in over a year, I had no one else to consider but me. Scratch that, me and my girls. We started at the Louvre. Basic? Sure. But we weren't there to take selfies with the Mona Lisa. We were there to celebrate freedom. Harper wore a red beret and kept pretending she was leading a revolution. Zoe narrated everything in a fake British accent, and Olivia made a playlist on the spot called Boys Are Trash, but Paris Is Not. By lunchtime, we'd walked more than 10,000 steps, taken 400 photos, and laughed our way through nearly every wing of the museum. We ate in a tiny cafe near the Seine, the kind with checkered tablecloths and a grumpy old man who brought us wine even though we didn't ask for it. So, Olivia said, leaning in, "What's next?" "Next," I repeated, chewing on a piece of baguette. "We follow the original itinerary." They blinked at me. "You mean the one you made with Jake?" "Exactly," I grinned, "but with better company and zero emotional baggage." We pulled up the shared Google Doc I had so painstakingly built during our engagement. Every city, every booking, every train ride, dinner, museum, vineyard, it was all still there. "Florence?" Zoe asked. "Check." "Nice." "Check." "Amsterdam?" "Double check." Harper smirked. "So basically we're hijacking his honeymoon." "Correction," I said. "We're upgrading it." The rest of the day was a blur of wine tastings, vintage stores, and a spontaneous photo shoot near the Eiffel Tower, where we each took turns pretending we were in a Chanel commercial. We were loud, carefree, and borderline obnoxious, and I loved every second of it. That night we danced. Not in a club. Not in heels. But barefoot in our hotel room, blasting Beyoncé while wearing face masks and drinking rose straight from the bottle. There was no sadness left. No space for regret. Only freedom. And Paris. And girls who showed up when it mattered. As I fell asleep, my phone lit up with a message from Jake. "Please talk to me." I muted the notification, turned the phone face down, and rolled over. Jake was in the past. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we had a train to Florence. Florence greeted us with golden light and the smell of fresh focaccia. The train ride from Paris had been surprisingly peaceful. No drama. Naughty mind this. Just 4 women playing Uno, swapping lip gloss, and laughing so hard we got shushed by a French couple in the row behind us. Twice. When we stepped onto the platform at Santa Maria Novella station, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the way the buildings looked like a painting. Or how the streets hummed with history. Or maybe it was because, for the first time since the wedding, I wasn't thinking about Jake at all. We checked into a boutique hotel tucked near the Arno River. Our suite had a terrace view of the Ponte Vecchio, and the bell tower of Palazzo Vecchio chimed just as we opened the balcony doors. I took it as a sign from the universe. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. That night we dressed up like full glam. Not because we were going on a date, but because we damn well could if we wanted to. Red lips. Big earrings. Dresses that made heads turn. And heels that made us question our life choices after hour 2. We had dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Duomo. Pasta drowned in truffle cream. Wine that didn't need a label to be amazing. And laughter that echoed louder than any regret I once held. Somewhere between dessert and limoncello shots, Harper leaned in. "So," she said, "what's the plan with the house?" I smiled. "I called my lawyer," I said. "Jake added my name to the title before the wedding. Big romantic gesture, remember? Turns out it wasn't just romantic, it was legally binding." Zoe let out a loud gasp. Olivia raised her glass like she was at church. "To shared assets," she whispered like a prayer. "To karma," I added. The next morning, we hiked up to Piazzale Michelangelo just before sunrise. The city below was wrapped in gold, the Arno shimmering like liquid light. I stood there, coffee in hand, wrapped in a scarf Zoe had bought me from a street vendor, and felt something settle in me. Peace. Not the fake kind where you smile through the pain. Real peace. The kind that comes after you've survived the worst day and still found something beautiful on the other side. As the sun rose over Florence, I made myself a promise. This trip wouldn't be about running from what happened. It would be about reclaiming what's next. Sorrento smelled like lemon trees and salt water. We'd traded the elegance of Florence for coastal charm, and I wasn't mad about it. Our villa sat on a hillside with a terrace that looked straight out over the Tyrrhenian Sea. The air was warmer, slower. Like the universe was gently telling us to breathe. We spent the first day in sundresses, barefoot, with Aperol spritzes in hand. Zoe got sunburned in the shape of her sunglasses. Harper tried to flirt with a bartender who turned out to be 16. Olivia found a cat and named it Divorce. It was perfect. That night, we wandered down a cobblestone alley to a family-run restaurant with no name. Just candlelight, live mandolin music, and the best damn gnocchi I've ever had. Halfway through dinner, Olivia nudged me. Table behind you. 10 o'clock. Hot guy. Staring. I rolled my eyes. I'm not here for that. Emma, she whispered, you kicked out a cheating husband in a towel. I think you can survive a flirty glance. I stole a peek. He was hot. Tall, tan, dark hair pulled into a low bun. He looked like he'd just stepped off a yacht or out of a Netflix miniseries. And yeah, he was definitely looking. But I wasn't ready. Not for that. Not yet. Still. It was nice to be noticed. Not as a bride. Not as a wife. Just as a woman who looked damn good in a yellow dress. Later that night, back on our terrace, Olivia poured us all limoncello shots and asked the question I'd been dodging since Paris. Do you miss him? I didn't answer right away. The sea shimmered below us. The breeze carried soft music from somewhere down in town. No, I said finally. I miss who I thought he was. I miss the version of me that trusted so easily. But him? I don't miss the lying. I don't miss the silence. And I definitely don't miss the second guessing. Zoe raised her glass. To never settling for crumbs. We all drank. And in that moment, surrounded by women who had flown across the world for me, I realized something powerful. I didn't just lose a man. I lost the part of me that thought I needed one to feel complete. Cinque Terre looked like someone spilled a box of crayons onto a cliffside and called it paradise. We arrived in Vernazza just before sunset, dragging our rolling suitcases over cobblestone streets while locals watched us with a mix of amusement and pity. Olivia's bag lost a wheel. Zoe's fell down a stairway. Harper refused to stop for gelato until we had photos worthy of revenge. We stayed in a small guest house perched above the harbor. The view? Unreal. The kind of place where you could sit on the balcony with a glass of something bubbly and pretend your life had always been this beautiful. And for the first time. Maybe it was. The next morning we bought day passes for the local train and decided to hit all 5 towns in one day. Monterosso, Corniglia, Manarola, Rio Maggiore. Between us there were 0 plans and 4 outfits each. We took selfies on rocky cliffs, danced with buskers in the street, and crashed a German bachelorette party who mistook us for influencers. They weren't totally wrong. In Manarola, we stopped at a tiny seaside cafe for lunch. Olivia looked up from her risotto and grinned. You know what we need? I braced myself. What? A divorce party. Harper nearly choked on her spritz. Yes. Zoe clapped. God, why didn't we think of that in Paris? I laughed. What would that even look like? A cake, Olivia said. With, congratulations on dumping the trash, written in pink icing. A sash, Zoe added. Newly free. Or maybe Mrs. Never Again. And champagne, Harper said. Obviously. So we did it. That night, we bought the cheapest, fizziest bottle of champagne we could find, lit tea light candles all over the terrace, and danced to breakup anthems until the neighbors banged on the walls. We made speeches. Toasted to red flags we used to ignore. Burned a copy of the wedding invite. And laughed so hard my stomach hurt the next morning. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about reclaiming the future. As the sun dipped into the sea and the sky turned pink and gold, I stood barefoot on that stone balcony and whispered to myself, "You're allowed to start over." And damn. Felt so good to believe it. Amsterdam hit differently. Maybe it was the shift in weather, cooler, softer. Or the way the canals made everything feel still even when the streets were buzzing. But from the moment we stepped off the train I felt it. A different kind of quiet. The kind that forces you to listen. Our Airbnb was an old canal house with creaky stairs and floor-to-ceiling windows. We drank black coffee on the front stoop. Watched locals pedal past on bikes with kids in front baskets and fresh flowers tucked into backpacks. Life here felt grounded. Like no one was performing. I liked that. We didn't party much in Amsterdam. Didn't dress up or post stories every 10 minutes. We walked. Got rained on. Laughed when we got lost. Ate fries with mayo from a street cart at midnight. Took turns reading pages of books we found in secondhand shops. One afternoon Olivia and I wandered into a tiny vintage store. While she tried on a suede jacket, I found an old silver picture frame with the quote pressed behind the glass. "You can start over right where you are." I bought it. Later that evening we sat by the water, wrapped in scarves, passing around a bottle of wine we hadn't bothered to chill. Zoe looked at me, her eyes softer than usual. "So what happens when you go home?" That question hit harder than I expected. I hadn't thought about home. Not really. I knew Jake would be gone, he'd agreed to move out. The papers would be filed. The house mine. But beyond that, silence. I think, I said slowly, I build a new version of everything. Not in reaction to him. Just for me. Harper nodded. "You're not who you were when this started." "No," I said smiling. "I'm not." And it was true. The girl who boarded that flight to Paris was still tangled in someone else's story. But the woman sitting by the Amsterdam Canal, wine-stained and wind-blown, was finally writing her own. Not out of spite. Not for revenge. But for peace. The flight back felt like a blur. Not sad. Not heavy. Just like my soul had finally exhaled after holding its breath for too long. When the plane touched down in New York, I wasn't the same person who had left. I came home with 3 new freckles, a camera roll full of wine-stained smiles, and a suitcase that somehow felt lighter than when I packed it, even though I'd added 2 pairs of boots, a silk scarf and a small silver picture frame. Jake wasn't at the airport. Of course he wasn't. By the time I stepped into our house, now legally just mine, his stuff was gone. No more guitar leaning against the wall. No more cologne in the bathroom. No more passive-aggressive sticky notes about the thermostat. Just quiet. I kicked off my shoes and walked barefoot through the living room. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like his anymore. It felt like potential. The next morning I called the lawyer. The divorce papers were finalized in 3 weeks, record time. Clean, direct, no drama. The house was officially mine, and with a bit of his savings, so was a garden renovation I never thought I'd afford. Olivia, Harper and Zoe came over the day I changed the locks. We ordered Thai food, drank too much Prosecco and dug up the dumb, live, laugh, love sign Jake had insisted on hanging by the kitchen. We replaced it with a framed quote, "You can start over right where you are." I hung it above the fireplace. One Sunday afternoon I stood in the backyard, my backyard, and watched as landscapers pulled up the last of the dead grass. I imagined weekend brunches. Movie nights projected on the garage wall. Plants I wouldn't forget to water. A life designed for me. No pretending. No adjusting myself to fit someone else's idea of love. Just space. And sunlight. And peace. My phone buzzed. A message from Harper. Just checking in. "You good?" I smiled and typed back, "I'm more than good. I'm finally home."